We'll record it. All right. Again, I don't have anything in detail to go over today, but I just wanted to mention some of the things that should be coming down within the next day or two, and a couple of things that got finished up last week. I'm sure most of you are aware that the email notifications, hopefully you've seen a lot more of those coming through. The new sale especially was the one that we focused on first and tried to get through all of the potential error messages that could happen and make sure that that was getting out to everybody. The next ones that we're focused on were the cancellation and the lot transfer and change orders. So if any of the other ones you're not seeing, I know there is an intent to cancel and a revert to dirt and a couple other smaller ones. Those were kind of put on their own ticket to be done all at once, just because we wanted to make sure the ones every single division uses were out first. If you're noticing that you still have individuals that are not receiving anything at all, please let me know because we should be, for the most part, seeing 99% of the emails, the new sale and the cancellation emails going out regularly and consistently. So if you're not seeing that, please just let me know so I can dig in further. Because as I did mention, one of the things we discovered is the fact that it will, if one person's email is invalid or fails, it will fail the entire email. So we've turned on a bunch of different things to notify people if there is a bounce back so that we can fix it immediately, and a couple other items as far as apostrophes and different things like that, to try and catch them all. And we've whitelisted all of the email addresses that are group emails in Outlook, for example, the design studio, or if you have a sales group for your community, every one of those has whitelisted Salesforce so that it should allow the emails to come through that method, so you shouldn't have to change anything. And that was really one of the big items from last week that took a lot more time than we had hoped, but I know it was a big one, so hopefully that is getting better. Um, One of the other items today that is I've seen in our sandbox, and I'm pushing to get it out into production today, doing a little bit of a different process, and instead of reviewing them in our sandbox, which is kind of a mess, because they are just reports and don't affect changes to, coding changes or anything like that. I'm asking to have them pushed into production, and then I will probably reach out to a couple individuals for some assistance because if they get bottlenecked at me, then it just means longer that others have to wait to see them. We do have the community status report is completed, the sales inventory report is completed, and the sales activity round two, I guess you could call it. I wanted to have it so that if you select the division and don't pick any communities, it will list all of the communities in that division. I wanted to have all of the communities only show active. It was showing communities from, 2010 in there. And then also just having the contingency column moved over, which was not a big deal, but just one of the things that was in that ticket. So those changes have also been done. I'm trying to get those in today. Once we've kind of validated that, they look okay and the data is all right, even if there's a few tweaks in terms of, we'd like to have this field added or this field moved, it's likely that we'll still, I'll take and put them out so everybody can see them and then just let people know that revisions are coming. Um, and then on the same line with reports, the escrow report, I went back in and looked at it and realized that several of the modifications I had requested never got put in place. So I raised that one up a little bit. As far as some of the items being at the top, you should only see active communities and they should list at least in alphabetical order or something. And then the bar along the top, when you're scrolling down, it disappears. So I want that frozen. And then the scroll bar that goes horizontally left to right, you have to go down all the way to the bottom before you can go left and right. So those changes, I added those to the ability to print the document as an Excel document, or I guess export it and then you can print it if you want. But so that feature combined with those other changes, I've added those in because it just wasn't very user friendly the other way that when I was trying to use it. So I apologize for that because I did think those changes had been put in place. And because I don't look at the report as you guys do all the time, I didn't notice it and I didn't feel the pain. But when I had to finally use it, I did. So I submitted those. Um, Let me really quickly. Does anybody want, before I jump into other items, are there any questions so far on any of the stuff that I've mentioned or things you want to make sure I don't forget? All
Amber,
right.
where is the community status report saved?
Right now, it's not in production yet. So it will be in all the custom reports right now are listed as one of these in the navigation menu. So there's the sales activity report. This one, would like them to rename it, to avoid everything getting extremely long every time we create a custom report. Dan will probably make a page for us or something like that so that when you go to Shea Custom Reports, it'll have the community, the sales inventory, the escrow report, basically almost all of the JF Shea reports because those all had to be custom. So whenever they do them custom, it's not listed in the reports menu. They all have to be listed as kind of what's considered an app. So that's why they have to fall in here. So the community status report, it's basically identical to the one in the JFK reports before. There's nothing unique or exciting about it, but it was recreated. So again, as soon as that one is in, I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can to get it in. I've asked for special approval to have it skip the full copy and go to production today. If it does, like I said, I will reach out to you guys and I'll just see if anybody has time. I'll send you the location. I just can't make it public until at least a couple people have looked at it and said, yeah, it looks okay. So then at that point, I'll throw it out to everybody. And by everybody, I mean all the users. You guys will be able to see it kind of first round, just to make any comments or notice anything that's completely incorrect.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so kind of this long list of items of things that are coming up, things that are in the pipeline. Just wanted to touch on a couple of them. I went over some of the reports already. The ability for you guys to update pricing. I've asked for a special permission set to be created, and I've been told that that is in code review, meaning developers have to review it and all that fun stuff. What I've kind of learned is that typically the safest bet when it makes it to code review, after that, it's going to be 2 to 3 days before it actually gets into production. So there's a lot of items right now that are sitting in that bucket. One of them also being the new user interface for the configure home screen. And what that is basically, let me find one of these real quick. Currently, it will list multiple lines. For example, we'll just pretend that these were the same option. I'm sure you guys are well aware that it requires you to do math in certain occasions where if there is a -1, you have to do a +2 if you want to actually have that option be added back, which is extremely confusing for a lot of people and has caused a lot of unintentional errors. So the new one is basically displaying only the net quantity, and it will have the ability to edit all of the lines as opposed to only certain ones. So that, along with a couple of other different improvements, trying to make the window larger. So when I do this portion, and select something, I know it's a struggle right now that you can see a whopping, sometimes only one item, sometimes two. So trying to make this window larger, as well as the select all button for when you are picking a preview COR, and it automatically will allow you to just check one box at the top if you know that you want everything. So I know a lot of those some of them aren't as exciting to sales. It's more design, but at the end of the day, everybody, it makes it easier when you can just see the net quantity on there as opposed to all the details. That was a huge, huge undertaking. Even though it sounds simple, it wasn't. And so that one, I think will probably end up being another 3 or 4 days before it passes all of the various stages it needs to pass. But at least I've actually seen it, so I know it exists. Um, and that's one of the other big items coming through the pipeline. And one of the reasons that um, on Friday I did not accomplish much, but it was working on trying to get through the issue of elevation prices falling off, basically. So I'm working with June and trying to come up with a list of all the ones that I need him to update. And basically, what happened is when these spec quotes are sitting right here, if this had an elevation price of $10,000, what actually gets copied over when a regular quote is created is what's called the quote lines. And I know you've seen the related list down there. And if the quote line only represents the plan amount and doesn't include the elevation, then when the regular quote is created, it literally does just fall off. And it has to do with when we migrated all of the data over, the base price and elevation price were not added up in order to create this quote line right here, which is your plan. So down here, this number, if there was a $10,000 elevation premium, should say 900,000, not 890. So I'm trying to identify every single one of those in the system and get them updated all at once. But it is also something I want to be very cautious of because of the fact that if I start updating pricing and any of them, are incorrect or there's anything wrong, then we're going to end up updating invalid pricing. So pricing scares me. So that list is being kind of fine tuned, and hopefully we will tonight after hours. June and I will push that through, and that will save a lot of the emails around the elevation price falling off, and people having to request, manual updates when they've got somebody sitting in front of them or something like that. So that is another one of the big items that I was working on a lot last week. And then the speeding of the options from E1 to Salesforce. Unfortunately, that is still sitting. Salesforce provided a solution. We did it. It didn't work. They've provided two more, and one of them helped eliminate one of the error messages, but we still have one large error message that is preventing us from getting options in from E1. It allows about 65% of them to come through, and the rest of them fail. And so that's why right now, every evening or every other evening, I'm going in and basically manually updating and sending anything that I notice in a Sharewell ticket or that somebody's emailed me and said they need an option, and just sending it manually from E1 to Salesforce, and that's our only option right now. But it's definitely big on my list, and I know it's frustrating for people as well that they're updating a description or cost or adding a new option, and it's not flowing into Salesforce immediately. So that is known and still on the list, unfortunately. Other than that, I'm not sure that I have a lot more to update on. Is there anything that I didn't touch on that somebody really wants to know about? Anything at all?
Amy, I just noticed something when that's happening now. When you're in the quote, I saw that you have to refresh so the side panel will come up. Is that something we have to do all the time now, or because before we didn't have to refresh
You shouldn't have to. I asked about that, and they were gonna raise the question to Salesforce and see if there's anything we can do in our settings, because it used to happen once every. I mean, I get it once a week, maybe at the most, and now I have it happen at least once or twice a day, if not more often. So it is, I mean, I know it's an easy thing to refresh, but I don't know exactly why they're not loading initially. Um, and typically they just give me a very odd answer. But I'm hoping that Salesforce will be able to tell us if there's something we can change that will prevent that from happening as often, because it seems to be occurring more often than it used to. All right. The only other thing I'm going to mention really quick, because when I was doing working with somebody else, I realized that under the report section, and I know this is, we didn't provide what we should have to you from Go Live, so there's been a lot of reports being created, which is totally fine. I don't mind anybody creating reports, which is why we had the division created reports folder. But one thing that I wanted to at least mention, and I will, as we go out and do more return visits for trainings, this is something key that the users should know as well. If you are in one of these reports, we're trying to avoid having 85 copies being made of the same report, and maybe it's just for a community. And the reason for that is if, for example, I noticed on the appraiser worksheet that when that was created, um, the consultants put the plan price here. Well, it's supposed to be the base price because the plan price is going to consistently increase as we have new releases, and this is meant to be the price of this particular home. So I changed that column as well as the order total options. They had home options total, which is actually incentives. So that wasn't correct either. So I did go in and I updated every single one of the division reports that are each one of the, reports that's in here. But anybody that's made a copy of this, theirs is now incorrect. And one of the reasons we did them by division instead of just having one and having everybody copy it is over here on the left. If I am at, let's say, we'll say artisan is my community. If I click on this checkbox right next to the community name and then come up here and say drill down, it's going to filter that report for just my community. And I can go ahead and then do an export and it will print just my community. So it's pretty simple to keep it as one report, and all they have to do is check their community and drill down and they're in there. I know it's, sometimes it's a lot easier. Oh, this one's just my community. But at the end of the day, it is difficult if we need to make a change on something that is a, key report for people and there's thousands of copies of it. So if it is, or maybe it's something where if you're just looking to add one additional column, typically it's best for us to just add the column on the main report rather than create a copy of it and then add another column, because we will end up with endless numbers of reports. And, there's some of them, there's very valid reasons for copying them, and that's totally fine. But just something I wanted to mention in case the teams weren't aware that there is an easy way to filter all of these, because it's not, you don't actually have to come over here and add a filter that says community, come and update it over here and do this whole process. If it is just the community, you can do it over here on the left. And this would be valid for any report that is broken down by community. They all have this box. And if you were creating your own report, for example, and whatever your first column is right here, when you set them up, it's going to give you the opportunity to allow this to be drilled down. So if I have some reports that are for, even higher above, and and the division is listed here, and you can do just one division at a time. So just something to keep in mind as you're starting to create some of these reports. And the last thing I will say is that I just started for active lifestyles, and I'll follow along for everybody else. You don't have to use it, but I'm creating a role for each division so that if you have created a list view that you think is great for everybody in your division, previously you could only save it for yourself. So what I want to do is create the opportunity for when you come over and do the sharing settings, you can share this list view with a group of users. And I'm working on adding in one for each division so that if you are somebody who's creating a list view and you want every community rep in your division to have access to it without them having to recreate it or you having to walk through how to recreate it with them, you'll have the ability to share that list view with your division or anybody that's assigned to that division. So, again, not something you have to use by any means, but I know that it can be helpful sometimes rather than having to work with each person individually to get their list view to look the way that they would like, so you can help share. Anything else any questions on anything that you would like for me to push higher up the ladder because it's driving you nuts?
Amy, where are we on cancellations? Getting that checkbox to automatically check off when they finalize the cancellation.
It's not, to be honest, it's not in the critical or most critical bucket yet, and they're still working on those. But I might be able to do it myself. So I will try to take that one on because it's very, very basic code. And if I can manage to pull it off, then I will submit it and see if I can have somebody review it. In the meantime, it's actually because you can do mass edits. Um, so if I change this, so now what I can do is by clicking this pencil here, I can actually edit this list and very quickly in the entire list go through and check that box. So that's kind of unfortunately been what I've learned to do as not my favorite workaround, but if I can't get something accomplished as quickly as I would like, um, if I don't know why I didn't save this, sorry. So all of these are currently checked, but if I saved this, then basically I would come in and maybe once a week or something look at this list view and just come over here and do a quick check of all of them. I can
Yeah, they look at
confirm
them
that
every day. That's the first thing I have to come in and look at is to make sure that all of our numbers are correct. So when they look at them at the beginning of the day, they're correct. So
yeah, I mean,
that'd be great.
unfortunately, like I said, if I had more people, I've got them working on as many things as I can, and I have a long list. So I will keep pushing to get them done as fast as I can, but I'm kind of stuck, unfortunately. They've told me they're getting another person. But again, when it comes to some of these items, it's if a feed issue comes up which presents incorrect data between the two different systems, then that one gets automatically bumped ahead of some of the requests that I have. So
Makes sense.
I wish I had a better answer, but I'd be lying if I told you that it was, it'll be done in a week or something because I've seen the rate at which the tickets go through and it's just not on there. But like I said, this one might be one that I can actually figure out. And if I can, then I will go ahead and, put that one in, and see if I can get them to review it because I do know it's a pain. And usually in any of the quick ones that I can fix, I will do my best to get them in um, around the other tickets that they're working on.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else?
Amy, some of our info bursts that are you working on those or are those on the list as well? Like our contingency report and our credit approval dates?
Well, some of those are specific to SoCal because I created them.
Right.
So yeah, those ones, I'll have to fix those. The credit approval one though, I did send out, what the issue with that one, it should be San Diego and SoCal are going to notice the biggest, impact on that one because, that those divisions were using credit approval date instead of loan approval date in S1. So when we mapped them, we mapped loan approval date to initial loan approval date, and that's what the report is looking at. And so I went and June basically dumped all of the credit approval dates into S2. And the problem now is just the fact that when you data load or dump the data in, it doesn't trigger a feed to anything. And so I created a list of every single one of those lots that were affected. And they're going to assist me tonight with basically a, I don't know how to say it. They're going to do a process that's going to be as if I went into each one of those and hit the send to E1 button manually, but not doing it 250 times. So that should be complete by the end of the day. And then I think for some divisions, that report goes out every morning. So tomorrow morning, it should be better. For if it's weekly, then the next one that you get should have all the data in. But I'll confirm it's the pressing of the E1 button. That process is in the hands of one developer right now. And if he doesn't finish it by the end of the day, then I may be pressing the button for a while tonight. But any of that report does go to all divisions. If they are kind of SoCal specific reports, those ones you'll have to ask me because I probably created them, and it may just be that one of the fields, most of the fields stayed the same, but there's a couple of them that either had a name change or something along those lines. All right. Well, we are at the end of the time. So if anything else comes up, please let me know, and I will talk to you all again on Friday. Sorry. Thank you.